My mother gave my baby an empty box as a gift for her first birthday. Why did my mother pretend my baby didn't exist? When I married Daniel, my mother acted like I'd personally betrayed her because he was a mechanic instead of some lawyer or doctor she could brag about. She literally told me on my wedding day that she gave it 2 years max. But when I got pregnant, I thought things would change because she'd always talked about wanting grandchildren. I was completely wrong. From the moment I told her I was pregnant, she acted like it wasn't happening. She'd change the subject immediately whenever I mentioned the baby. When I showed her ultrasound pictures, she'd glance at them for half a second, then start talking about her book club, or her neighbor's new fence, or literally anything else. She threw a fit when I asked her to come to the baby shower, saying she had planned a spa weekend that same day, even though I'd told her the date 2 months earlier. My mother-in-law threw the shower instead, and my own mother didn't even send a gift. When Jane was born, my mother didn't come to the hospital. She said hospitals were full of germs, and she didn't want to get sick. My father came alone and held Jane for hours while my mother stayed home reorganizing her closet. She didn't meet Jane until she was 3 weeks old, and even then she refused to hold her. I don't want to drop her, she said, standing 6 feet away like Jane had some disease. But she'd held all my cousins' babies no problem. She'd post constantly on social media about being a proud grandmother to my sister's kids who lived across the country, but not a single photo or mention of Jane who lived 20 minutes away. When people asked her about her grandchildren, she'd only talk about my sister's twins. If someone specifically asked about my baby, she'd say, "Oh yes, the baby," and immediately change the subject. She'd come to our house and sit in the living room while Jane was right there in her bouncer and act like she was invisible. She'd talk to me and Daniel about everything except the baby that was literally right in front of her. If Jane cried, she'd make this disgusted face and say, "Can't you take her to another room? I'm trying to visit with you." Like Jane was some annoying pet instead of her granddaughter. Family dinners were the worst. She'd set up high chairs for my sister's kids when they visited, but told me to keep Jane in her car seat on the floor because she didn't want food on her furniture. She'd pass around photos of my sister's kids to relatives, but when I tried to show Jane's photos, she'd interrupt and say, "Everyone's already seen them on your social media, they don't need to see them again." She'd buy expensive gifts for my sister's kids and send me links to garage sales for Jane's stuff. The breaking point came at Jane's first birthday. I'd planned this small party, just family and a few close friends. My mother said she'd come, but showed up 2 hours late after all the guests had arrived. She walked in carrying this elaborate gift bag, and I actually thought maybe she'd finally come around. She made this big show of placing it on the gift table, then sat in the corner on her phone the entire party. When it came time to open presents, I saved hers for last, thinking it would be special. Jane was sitting on my lap as I opened this beautifully wrapped box inside the fancy bag. It was empty, completely empty except for a card that said, "For Jane's college fund," with nothing inside. No check, no cash, no bonds, nothing. Just an empty card in an empty box in a fancy gift bag. Everyone went silent. My mother just stared at me with a smirk and said, "What? I thought you'd appreciate the gesture. Money's been tight since I've been helping your sister with the twins preschool." My mother-in-law lost it. She stood up in front of everyone and said, "What kind of grandmother gives an empty box to a 1-year-old? What's wrong with you?" My mother tried to act offended, saying, "I don't appreciate being attacked in my daughter's home." That's when my aunt stood up. "You haven't touched that baby once in a year because you hate her father. We've all watched you pretend Jane doesn't exist while you post about your other grandchildren 50 times a day." My mother tried to deny it, but my cousin pulled out her phone and started scrolling through my mother's social media. "Look, here's 20 posts about the twins from last week. Where's Jane? Oh right, not a single mention in an entire year." My father, who never spoke up about anything, finally said, "I'm ashamed of you. You've punished an innocent baby because you don't approve of who her father is. Daniel's been nothing but good to our daughter, and Jane is a blessing you've chosen to ignore." My mother's jaw dropped. Full story on channel, link below.